So this is the Pixel 4 XL, and all of the initial reviews are out, and no doubt if you're watching this video, then there's probably a good chance you've already seen quite a number of them. But I've been using this phone for the past month, and I really wanted to put it through its paces to give you guys a really detailed insight as to what it's like using this phone for an extended amount of time. So let's cut the rambling and get straight into it. Let's start with the best things about this phone. Firstly, the display. This is without a doubt one of the best panels you can get on the market right now for two main reasons. The first is for how color accurate and sharp it is and how great it is from a variety of different viewing angles. But then the second reason is for that new feature that Google dubs smooth display, which is their name for the 90 Hz panel that they've given to both the 4 and the 4 XL. By far and away, the 90 Hz panel makes this phone feel like the smoothest Android phone that I've ever used, and I flippin' love it. Now, initially when I first got this phone, whilst I could definitely tell that it was a 90 Hz panel for the most part, I found myself being a little bit underwhelmed. And then articles started coming out saying that Google was dynamically changing the refresh rate depending on a few different scenarios, namely what apps you're using and also how bright the display is. And so whilst this does help to improve the battery life dramatically, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on, there is actually an option found in the developer settings where you can set the 90 Hz panel to be always on no matter the scenario you're in. And so if you're looking for the smoothest experience possible, then this is a really fun option to have. Costly to the battery life for sure, but definitely makes for a very smooth software experience. Google has also already released a software patch that allows the 90 Hz panel to be on more often than it was before. So that's nice to see that they're also thinking about how to improve this functionality even further. Now, the one downside about the display is the fact that it's definitely not the brightest panel on the market, particularly when you compare it to other flagships of a similar price. And so this does make it a little bit tricky to view in bright conditions outdoors, which is a little bit of a bummer. Not the biggest issue, but to be honest, if Google had made this a brighter display and matched it with some of the other flagships, then they could have held the title of having the best display on a smartphone this year. Now, with all this talk of smooth displays and smooth experiences, man, is this phone's performance good. And this year, that's not just because of the software experience. It feels like every year that Google's released a new Pixel phone, whilst the software has often been touted as one of the smoothest versions of Android that you can experience, the phones themselves have always been let down by the specs. This year though, along with the Snapdragon 855, Google has finally given us 6 GB of RAM, which is 2 GB up from previous Pixel phones. And to be honest, that additional 2 GB has made the world of difference. Apps are no longer constantly removed from memory, and in all honesty, you can now switch between a pretty large chunk of apps before any of them have to reload. And this makes for a very smooth experience, which I'm all about. It also doesn't hurt that this is by far the smoothest version of Android that I've ever used. And that's probably particularly in thanks to the new full screen gestures, which for better or worse are pretty much just a blatant ripoff from the ones found on iOS. But that said, if you're someone who values having the smoothest of experiences when using your phone, then the Pixel 4 is just about the best that you can get. Now, face unlock on the Pixel 4 lineup has been one of those polarizing features. On the one hand, everyone agrees that it is stupid fast. Within seconds of setting up and using the phone, I actually switched off that skip lock screen feature because I really appreciate being able to see the content on my lock screen. And if you don't switch that off, you pretty much will never see the content on your lock screen. But it has been super reliable and really smooth as well. There was one instance on a previous software build where my face wasn't recognized at all, and I actually had to go into the settings and reload my face data. But aside from that, it has been reliable as hell, and I really appreciate how smooth the process of unlocking my phone now is. Like the iPhone lineup, Google actually uses infrared sensors to project dots onto your face, which means you can unlock the phone in the dark or with sunglasses on. And this makes it just as capable as what Apple offers, but perhaps just a little bit faster. What is getting people a little bit riled up though is the software implementation of Face Unlock. And the first supposed issue is the fact that you don't have to have your eyes open for the Face Unlock process to work. Now, first things first, if you are in a situation where you feel like someone in your vicinity is going to steal your phone and hold it in front of your face to unlock it and then use your phone to manipulate you or to steal your data, then you've got bigger fish to fry, my friend. And secondly, isn't the risk just about the same as with fingerprint sensors? I mean, if I'm sleeping and someone wanted to steal my data, couldn't they just strategically place my finger on the back of the phone or the front of the phone and unlock it that way? And yet no one was complaining about fingerprint sensors. So to me, even though Google has come out and said that they're going to release an update that addresses this issue and has an option to set it so that it makes sure your eyes are open when you're using Face Unlock, to me, this is a big non-issue. It's one of those cases where people just want to find something wrong with the Pixel lineup for the sake of finding something wrong with the Pixel lineup. And if you're in that tiny minority of people where the eyes closed thing is actually an issue, well, one, you probably aren't watching this video, and two, you should be using a password to log into your phone regardless of the phone you use, be it Pixel 4 or not. Okay, that's my little rant out of the way, but the second issue with Google's implementation of Face Unlock on the Pixel 4 lineup is that they didn't give app developers much time or even much reason at all to update their apps to support the new biometric API. And that means most of my security and banking apps don't yet support Face Unlock, and that means I'm stuck with using either PIN or password authentication, which is a little bit of a drag. Had Google opted to keep the fingerprint sensor on the back for one more year in conjunction with Face Unlock, then that would have been a much more pleasant experience for all involved. So in 6 months' time, Face Unlock is going to be phenomenal, but for now, it's great for unlocking your phone and doing a few Google-related security things, but that's just about it. Now, the other new headlining feature that debuted with the Pixel 4 lineup is what Google dubs Motion Sense. And this is a brand new feature that utilizes a radar buried within the phone's larger than normal forehead. So the biggest aspect of Motion Sense that Google has been pushing really hard in all of its promotional material has been what we'd call air gestures. And this is basically where you swipe your hand over the phone, pretty much just to skip tracks. Now, I've been using this phone for a month and I've rarely used it in real world use. Now with testing, it's been reliable, but honestly, I use it so rarely that this is comfortably filed under the gimmicky category for now. But the more subtle features of this new radar technology are actually what make it worthwhile, and to be honest, actually go a long way to justifying that really large forehead at the top of the phone. Let me give you a few examples. Firstly, given the phone can sense when you're in the near vicinity of it, you can enable a feature that switches off the display when you're no longer in the near vicinity of the phone. And this is a great way to save lots of battery life. And then even better yet is that as you reach your hand towards the phone, you'll notice that the display starts to turn on. You don't even have to touch it, but the phone knows you're about to pick it up. And then as you pick up your phone, the unlocking process starts. And then by the time the phone is in front of your face, the display is fully activated and you're unlocked and ready to go. I seriously love this feature. And then a few other really neat features that are super useful as well include the fact that if a timer or an alarm is going off, then as you reach to your phone to turn that notification off, your phone will detect that movement and it will silence the alarm tone for you without you even having to touch your phone. And then the same is true for a phone call. As you reach to either answer or reject the call, the phone will silence the notification for you. These features are the ones that make Motion Sense and this radar technology feel worthwhile and honestly not gimmicky whatsoever. Had Google hyped up these features and ignored air gestures altogether, then I don't think there'd be all these questions into whether or not Motion Sense and this radar technology are gimmicky, because in all honesty, I don't think they are. So then the big question is, does the radar and the Face Unlock technology justify the size of this phone's forehead? So while we're at it, let's talk about the phone design in general. To be honest, like last year's Pixel 3 XL, the Pixel 4 lineup is a really solid phone design-wise with just one or two missteps. As with last year, this phone has an excellent feel in the hand, thanks to that matte finish on the white and orange versions. And so unless you're all about those fingerprints, then I would avoid the black version like the plague. It's actually my favorite phone to hold given how nice that texture is on the back. We no longer have that dual tone finish though, which is a little bit of a shame because I really liked that design language and I thought it was Google's way of making the Pixel lineup stand out in an otherwise crowded market. So that is sad to see that no longer being a part of the Pixel 4 lineup. But these phones still look and feel very much like Pixel phones. If you're going to be putting your phone into a case though, then you may as well pick up any of the colors because all of the new variants come with this new matte black finish on the side rails. Now, I don't mind the look of these side rails whatsoever, and it certainly makes holding the phone without a case feel really solid and premium, but I have noticed that the matte black coating chips off really easily. And this has already happened in 2 areas on my unit. I don't know whether or not this is just my unit and all other units will be fine, but either way, I'd be very protective of the side rails and probably put your phone into a case. We also now have this square camera unit on the back of the phone, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on. But for what it's worth, I actually don't mind the look of this camera unit. Sure, it's a little bit odd that Google decided that this was the move given they only have 2 sensors stacked in there, but I actually think it adds a little bit of character to an otherwise fairly plain back of the phone. So we now know the purpose and potential usefulness of all of that tech that Google's jammed into the forehead on this phone. And to be honest, I think I prefer the look of the forehead over the notch that we saw on the Pixel 3 XL. But gee, I wish Google figured out a way to have some of those sensors under the display or squeezed into a minimal bottom chin, or even in a pop-up mechanism or something similar. To be honest, if someone's walking into a store to buy a phone and they're basing their decision purely off the design, which a lot of people do, particularly if they're looking for an Android phone, then the Pixel 4 is not going to be the first phone they look to buy, which is a little bit silly on Google's part. I really do appreciate the minimal chin, which does make up somewhat for the overly large forehead. But as I said in my initial review, I really wish Google had to squeeze that chin right the way down to match the size of those side bezels, which are really small. All that to say, the design of the Pixel 4 is decent. Not amazing, but pretty solid. And if feel in the hand is a big priority for you, then the Pixel 4 is definitely worth a look. It's still got an IP68 water and dust resistance rating, which is great. And even though the bottom speakers are no longer front facing, to my ears, the speakers are just about, if not just as good as the speakers we had on the Pixel 3 lineup, which is greatly appreciated. As I always say, once you start using the phone, that initial excitement that was related to the design of the phone, that starts to wear off. And so then it becomes all about the usability of the phone. And so if you're someone who's put off by the design of the Pixel 4 lineup, then I don't think you need to worry all that much. Now, before we talk about the cameras, let's talk about perhaps the biggest downside of the Pixel 4 lineup, which is the battery life. So with all this new tech that Google has incorporated into the Pixel 4 lineup, you know, the 90 Hz panel, the motion sense technology, and so on and so forth, that does take a pretty big toll on the battery life. And unfortunately, Google somehow did not have the foresight to plan for this. And they've put an okay battery into the Pixel 4 XL and an unacceptably bad battery into the smaller Pixel 4. At best, on a light to medium day, I've managed to get my Pixel 4 XL to around 5.5 hours of screen on time, with the phone dying at around 10:30, 11 PM, and that's taking the phone off charge pretty early in the morning. But more commonly on a medium to heavy day, I've only been able to get the Pixel 4 XL to around 4.5 hours and sometimes even closer to 4 hours of screen on time. And I've actually had a few instances where I've had to plug the phone in well before I've gotten into bed just to make sure that it lasts the distance. Now, as always, having quick charge on board does help to alleviate some of the concern that comes about with having a poor battery performance in a phone. But these days, it's pretty hard to get away with having poor battery life, given that so much of the competition is getting it right. And that's including the iPhone 11 lineup, the latest Samsung flagships, and even the OnePlus 7 and OnePlus 7 Pro lineup. So whilst it's not an absolute deal breaker for me, it will be for quite a lot of people. And to be honest, I'm starting to get pretty jealous of all these other phones that have such superior battery life. Okay, so you clearly can't have a proper Pixel 4 phone review without mentioning the cameras. So let's talk about the cameras. There are 2 very noticeable changes that you'll pick up on with the Pixel 4 lineup compared to last year's models. The first is that we no longer have that secondary ultra wide selfie cam on the front of the phone, and instead we now have a secondary lens on the rear of the phone, although Google has opted with a 2x telephoto sensor. And to be honest, both decisions have left me a little bit baffled. Now, the big notch and the really big forehead on the front of the Pixel 3 XL and 3 respectively from last year, they were somewhat justified with how appreciated and how great it was to have that ultra wide secondary front facing shooter. And in fact, it was one of the big selling points that Google was pushing onto consumers, and we all really loved having that feature. And so for Google to remove it altogether is perplexing to say the least. Admittedly, the single front-facing camera on the Pixel 4 lineup has been set to a slightly wider field of view, which gets us a little bit closer to the results that we saw from the ultra-wide selfie cam from last year's lineup. But in all honesty, if Google was just going to stick with one sensor this year, then they should have just put the ultra-wide from last year's lineup onto this year's lineup and then focused all of its attention on making that the best selfie shooter it could be, rather than the implementation that we have here. But then even more perplexing, in my opinion, was their decision to run with a 2x telephoto lens as the secondary lens on the back of the phone, particularly given it's their first ever foray into having a secondary lens on a Pixel phone. Now, Google claims that this 2x lens has been added to support the super res zoom feature that it introduced on last year's Pixel lineup. And their claim is that most users are spending their time pinching to zoom within the camera app so that they can get closer to whatever they're taking a photo of. And whilst that very well may be true, I actually thought that the implementation of the super res zoom feature using software alone was already really impressive. And so to add a secondary lens just to support that feature a little bit and make it a little bit better seems like a really odd choice. But apart from that, the cameras are actually not that big of an upgrade compared to what we had on last year's Pixel 3 lineup, which in and of itself is not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, the Pixel 3 held the title of having the best smartphone camera for the better part of the last year. So you're still getting an excellent camera, but what it has allowed for in staying so similar in quality to the cameras on the Pixel 3 is that the competition has been allowed to catch up, which is what we've kind of seen with the iPhone 11 lineup. And that means the Pixel can no longer hold that title on its own of having the best smartphone camera. That said, it still takes phenomenal images, and you even now have an HDR preview in the viewfinder before you even snap a shot, which means you get a really good understanding of what that final processed image is going to look like, which is a really handy feature to have. There's also a shadow slider, which, as the name would suggest, lets you really dial in how crushed or how bright the darker areas of the image are going to be. Just be careful with this option though, because I've actually found sometimes if I've pushed the slider too far one way or the other, it's actually resulted in some less than ideal looking photos. So I've actually found just letting Google's automatic image processing do the job for me is a much safer option. So it's probably going to be a similar story for you. There is also an added astrophotography mode, which is actually automatically enabled if your phone is in night sight and it detects that there's no movement whatsoever. So mounted on a tripod or leaning up against a water bottle or something similar. Once it detects that, then it will launch into astrophotography mode, which means once you hit the shutter button, it will start a 4-minute timer or thereabouts and take a long exposure photo. Now, I've seen some really cool results from other users online. I've done some quick testing myself with it as well. And whilst it's a really nice feature to have and I like that it's there, to be honest, I can't really see many common punters taking advantage of this feature, let alone even knowing that it's there. Now, in terms of video quality from the Pixel 4 lineup, to be honest, it's pretty good. And for most people, they'll be really happy with the quality of the videos they take using this phone. But if we take a step back and look at the rest of the market, then it is clear that Google just does not prioritize video yet. And that is a bit of a shame. I'd love to see it change in the future. But to be honest, unless you're someone who requires the absolute best video shooter on any smartphone, then for most people, the Pixel 4 will do the job just fine. Okay, so with all of that said, here is my big conclusion to this saga of a review. I really like the Pixel 4 XL. It has so many good things going for it, but mainly how smooth it is, how smart it is, and also the ever reliable camera performance. But to me, I feel like the Pixel 4 is the phone that Google should have released back in 2018. People would have been a heck of a lot more impressed had this phone launched a year ago. And I honestly see it as a phone that could have realistically launched in 2018 despite the technology that we have. Google could have then doubled down and improved the design and improved the technology, worked with some under-display sensor technology and added a wide-angle sensor to the back. And had they gone away and worked on all of that and then released that phone this year, then we could have had hands down the best smartphone of 2019 and probably even of 2020. But as it is, Google has found themselves yet again in that same position, releasing a really solid smartphone for probably just a little bit too much money, meaning it will do pretty poorly in sales, no doubt, and the cycle will go on and on. That said, this phone is really great. And if you're someone who's coming from using the Pixel 2 or something similar, then the Pixel 4 will make for a very solid upgrade. It is a really nice phone to use. It's just a shame that not many will end up using it. But that's it for my review on the Pixel 4 XL. Hopefully you enjoyed it or at least found it entertaining, and let me know your thoughts on the Pixel 4 lineup down in the comments below. But that's it. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll catch you later.